Good evening and welcome to Kini News. Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin said that the state of emergency that was declared this morning is not a military coup and that the civilian government will continue to function as usual during the period.
Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin said the government will continue to function during the nationwide emergency declared today, stressing there has been no military coup. The emergency declaration came after he announced a strict 2-week movement control order in 6 states and all federal territories that begins tomorrow.
Let me assure you that the civilian government will continue to function. The emergency proclaimed by the young di-Pertuan Agong is not a military coup, and curfew will not be enforced.
Earlier today, the Comptroller of the Royal Household, Ahmad Fadil Shamsuddin, confirmed that the young di-Pertuan Agong had consented to the government's request for a state of emergency until August 1st. In a special address, Muhyiddin said the government needed certain powers to effectively combat the worsening COVID-19 pandemic. He added that economic activities will be able to continue during the emergency period and hoped the calm and stability from the emergency would help spur the COVID-19 stricken economy. Muhyiddin also assured that he will not use his emergency powers to interfere with the judiciary.
The judiciary will continue to be the beacon of justice in our country, and I will never interfere in the business of the court.
The Prime Minister also said that no elections will be held during the period of the COVID-19 emergency that was proclaimed today.
Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin said elections will not be held during the emergency, while Parliament will not convene unless deemed necessary by the young di-Pertuan Agong. He said he knows that the people do not want an election while COVID-19 is still spreading. Muhyiddin added that some were pressuring him to call for an election and said that he cannot do so during a pandemic.
Mutakhir ini terdapat pihak-pihak yang mendesak supaya pilihan raya diadakan. Saya tidak berniat untuk tidak mengadakan pilihan raya. Perkara utama yang menghalang saya daripada menasihati ke bawah duli Yang Maha Mulia Seri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong agar membubarkan Parlimen untuk membolehkan pilihan raya diadakan ialah pandemik COVID-19.
Nevertheless, Muhyiddin gave a firm commitment that elections will be held when the disease has subsided or recovered and it is safe to hold a general election. He said an independent committee made up of health experts and bipartisan lawmakers will be set up to advise the young di-Pertuan Agong on the national emergency. Among the issues the committee will deliberate on is for how long the order needs to be in place, and another role will be to determine when GE15 can be held.
Justru saya memberikan komitmen yang tegas bahawa pilihan raya umum akan diadakan sebaik sahaja jawatan kuasa khas bebas yang akan ditubuhkan memperakukan bahawa wabak COVID-19 telah reda atau pulih sepenuhnya dan pilihan raya adalah selamat untuk diadakan. Pada masa itu terpulanglah kepada rakyat untuk memilih kerajaan mana yang layak untuk mentadbir negara ini dan menjaga kebajikan saudara dan saudari sekalian. Inilah komitmen dan aku janji saya yang akan saya tunaikan insya-Allah.
And now we'll take a look at the country's latest COVID-19 situation in this segment brought to you by Blue Air.
The Health Ministry today reported a record-setting 3,309 new COVID-19 cases and 190 patients in intensive care. This comes a day before a large part of the country goes into a movement control order lockdown. The total number of active cases in the country is now at 30,390. 6 of the cases today were imported. From the local cases, Selangor continues to record the highest number of new infections with 1,007. This was followed by Johor with 442 cases, Sabah with 409, and Kuala Lumpur with 326 new cases. 4 new deaths were also recorded today, bringing the total death in the country from COVID-19 to 559.
A third cabinet minister has tested positive for COVID-19 this month.
Home Minister Hamzah Zainuddin is the third cabinet member to be diagnosed with COVID-19 this month. In a statement, Hamza's office said the minister took a test yesterday and his results returned positive. It urged all of his close contacts between January 8th and January 11th to get tested. Throughout the treatment and quarantine period, Hamza will continue to monitor and ensure that the ministry functions smoothly, the statement read. The entire cabinet had gone for a COVID-19 test after a minister tested positive for COVID-19 recently. On January 10th, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Mustafa Muhammad's office, confirmed he contracted the coronavirus. A day later, Women, Family and Community Development Minister Rina Harun's office confirmed she was down with COVID-19 as well. Earlier, Health Minister Dr. Adam Baba was quoted by Bernama as saying that all cabinet ministers have undergone COVID-19 screening tests, with 3 of them having been tested positive. Without disclosing the names of ministers who have been confirmed positive for the virus, he said they were currently undergoing treatment at the Ministry of Health's facilities. To date, a total of 4 ministers have caught the virus. In October last year, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, also tested positive for COVID-19.
Former UMNO Supreme Council member Nazri Abdul Azeez has joined the ranks of some UMNO MPs who have withdrawn their support for Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin.
Padang Rengas MP Nazri Abdul Azeez has announced that he is withdrawing support for Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. He made the announcement during a press conference in Kuala Lumpur today, just a few hours after the Prime Minister made a special announcement on the proclamation of the nationwide COVID-19 emergency.
Ya. Jadi atas mandat yang telah diberikan oleh bahagian saya, bahagian Padang Rengas, dan mandat yang diberikan oleh Majlis Tinggi, maka saya pada ini saya nak mengumumkanlah, ya, iaitu saya Muhammad Nazri bin Azeez, Ketua UMNO bahagian Padang Rengas, merangkap ahli Parlimen UMNO Kawasan Nasional Kawasan Padang Rengas. Dengan ini dan dengan rasminya saya menarik sokongan yang diberikan kepada Nasi Muhyiddin untuk membentuk kerajaan yang sedia ada.
Nazri's decision rendered PN as a minority government with 109 MPs out of 202 in Parliament, including 2 vacancies that must be filled. Despite his decision, Nazri insisted he is not pressuring for polls until the COVID-19 pandemic can be controlled. Nazri also said he had deliberated on his decision and believed it to be the best for UMNO. He added that the declaration of emergency by Muhyiddin was done as he did not have the majority support and could not call for an election due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Jadi apabila dia memohon untuk emergency, bermakna dia telah membuat pengakuan bahawa dia sudah kalah dan dia juga sudah tidak ada majority. So pada saya, it is logical for him to apply for emergency.
Coming up next, an emergency declaration was approved in Washington, D.C. ahead of US President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. Sound familiar? Find out more after this. Welcome back. Just to be clear, we're currently in our foreign news segment in case you experience some deja vu. US President Donald Trump on Monday approved an emergency declaration for Washington, D.C. that lasts through January 24th.
US President Donald Trump has declared a state of emergency in the nation's capital ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th. This came after the FBI warned that armed protests were being planned for Washington and all 50 US state capitals in the run-up to Biden's inauguration. In a press release on Monday, the White House said that Department of Homeland Security and Federal Emergency Management Agency are authorized to help ensure public safety and to protect property as part of an effort to lessen the threat of a catastrophe. Washington remains on high alert ahead of Biden's inauguration, which had already been scaled back dramatically because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The National Guard was authorized on Monday to send in up to 15,000 troops, and tourists were barred from the Washington Monument due to threats of more violence from Trump supporters. On January 6, a group of Trump's loyalists stormed the U.S. Capitol building, clashing with police, damaging property, seizing the inauguration stage, and occupying the rotunda. Lawmakers were forced to flee, and 5 people died in the violence, including one Capitol Police officer who was beaten as he tried to ward off the crowds. The violence occurred shortly after Trump urged his supporters to march on the Capitol during a rally where he repeated false claims that the November 3rd election was rigged against him. Trump, who has without evidence challenged the validity of Biden's election win, initially praised his supporters but later condemned the violence. In a video statement after the attack, he acknowledged a new administration would take office on January 20th, but had still not conceded that he lost the election and had said that he would not attend Biden's inauguration. Trump has not been seen in public since the riot, although he met with Vice President Mike Pence on Monday for the first time since condemning him for refusing to block the certification of Biden's victory.
Indonesia has identified a victim from the Sriwijaya air crash on Monday as emergency crews sent in a remotely operated underwater vehicle to search for the jet's cockpit recorders in the sea.
An Indonesian police official told reporters that Oki Bisma, a flight attendant on the Sriwijaya airjet, which plunged into the Java Sea 2 days ago, has been identified by his fingerprints. This came as Indonesian rescue teams scoured the wreckage of the crashed passenger plane for black data boxes. According to emergency officials, divers had scoured the seabed on Monday, retrieving human remains, personal possessions, and pieces of plane wreckage until fading light ended the search. A remotely operated underwater vehicle was also deployed to help divers search for the remains of victims and recover the flight recorders from a Sriwijaya airjet. Officials said that divers have narrowed down an area where they believe the flight recorders are believed to be, but search efforts have been hindered by debris. Once the flight data and cockpit voice recorders are found, Indonesia's National Transportation Safety Committee, KNKT, expects to be able to read the information in 3 days. With few immediate clues on what caused a catastrophic loss of control after takeoff, investigators will rely heavily on the flight recorders to determine what went wrong. They will also study maintenance and engine records, pilot rosters and training, air traffic recordings, and other data. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board will automatically be involved in the investigation, with technical support from Boeing provided as needed. The Boeing 737-500 jet, with 62 people on board, was headed on a domestic flight to Pontianak on Borneo Island on Saturday before it disappeared from radar screens and crashed into the Java Sea. There were 62 people on board. Tracking service Flight Radar 24 said the aircraft took off at 2:36 p.m. local time and climbed to 10,900 feet within 4 minutes. It then began a steep descent and stopped transmitting data 21 seconds later.
And that's all the time we have. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on social media where we post the latest headlines as well on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. From all of us here at KiniTV, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel Anthony, and it's been an honor to be your newscaster. Once again, thank you, Malaysia. Stay safe and good night.